Hello, my name is Michael Tucker, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Institute of New Thought. And welcome to today's video called What is the Institute of New Thought? I'm excited to share this information with you today, so let's get started. So today we're going to talk about the idea of New Thought, the principles, the philosophies, what it is. We'll talk about the history. We're going to talk about New Thought versus New Age. It's a very important conversation to have. I'll share with you some principles of New Thought so you get an idea of what philosophies govern this larger philosophy. We'll talk about some New Thought practices. We'll also discuss real-world applications of New Thought philosophy, which is really important because you want to be able to apply these principles to your life so that you can improve the quality of your life and enhance your overall well-being. So what is New Thought? New Thought is a philosophy. It is a way of living. It is a way of thinking. It is a way of being. It's a philosophy that explains and provides structure for understanding and applying all spiritual principles regardless of their origin. So what this means is that no matter what belief system, what faith system you have, maybe you don't have a belief system or that you know of, we all have a belief system that governs us. We'll talk a little bit about that, but regardless of what your frame of reference is, there are a set of principles that govern how you move through the world, how you can see those philosophies and principles impacting your life, how the choices you make impact your life. And this is the idea of spirituality. It's basically being able to see the invisible and understand it. And what we do at the Institute of New Thought is show you how to see and understand those principles regardless of where they are in your life, regardless of what your background, religious or cultural background is. And this slide, we'll talk a bit about the history of New Thought, and what you can see right away is that New Thought really isn't all that new. These principles and philosophies go back thousands and thousands of years. What is new is the opportunity and the possibility to experience the world newly, to see the world newly after you've applied these principles to your life. So 30,000 to 15,000 BC, you had ancient Egypt, you had the land of Sumer, you had a number of wise men, teachers, philosophers, priests, and so forth that studied the mind, studied philosophy, they studied psychology, they studied a great deal of what it was to be human during that time, and they shared this information. A lot of the writings about these topics that are on many of the temples and many of the pyramids are still there. They haven't been read yet, and they haven't been exposed yet. But this is really where you first see the beginning of New Thought emerge. At about 10,000 BC, you start to gain exposure to the Indian and the yogic traditions. A lot of archaeologists suggest that a number of these individuals actually traveled from Egypt to India, carrying a lot of their traditions and their belief systems and what they had learned, all of this high learning. They carried this with them, and they began to apply it and develop it and cultivate it greatly in India. Move forward about 8,000 years, continue forward, you see the Jewish tradition emerge. That shows up, and then about 1,800 years later, there's the Christian tradition, which comes out of that, followed by the Confucius, Buddhist traditions over in China and eastern portion of the world. 7 AD, you have the Islamic tradition show up. And then finally, in the 1800s, here in the West, you begin to see an emergence of viewpoints that are looking at all of this history, all of the principles, all of the laws that govern the philosophies of these ages, and they're looking for ways to see how they fit. And the way that they discovered how they fit was through principles. So regardless of what your religious or belief system is, there are certain principles that you can apply. And that's really what New Thought is about. It's really a philosophy that helps you identify what the principles are, what are the overarching principles that are governing how you experience life, how you experience the world. And it gives you an opportunity to choose something newly if you don't like what you see. So in the West, in the 19th century, the 20th century, the 21st century, as you can see just from the number of pictures here, there are many people that were a part of this New Thought movement. The New Thought movement, if you will, was never really an official movement. I don't think they had a banner or anything like that, but it was just an experience of thought. It was an experience of people who thought a certain way. And you have early in the 1800s, you have Ralph Waldo Emerson. Maybe you read some of his books in high school. You have Henry David Thoreau. These guys influenced women like Mary Edie Baker. If you're familiar with the Christian Science Monitor, that's the brainchild of Mary Edie Baker, along with Christian Science. Her protege, Emma Curtis Hopkins. Next to her, the Unity tradition came out, the leadership of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. You had Science of Mind, which was started later, Actually, that was started in the 20th century by Ernest Holmes. And you can kind of see all of these people and some of the things kind of merging right here at the top. You have Yogananda, which when he came from the East, that really enhanced and uplifted the conversation around New Thought, with him bringing a number of Eastern perspectives to the West. And at the time in the West, the primary philosophy, the order of the day was the Christian tradition. And what he did and what a number of these guys did, and ladies, what they brought to the table was an expanded awareness, an expanded view, a more metaphysical or esoteric view of what they were reading in the Bible at that time. And they were just looking for the patterns. They were looking for principles. And in the 20th century, you really start to see some of these principles being applied to business. And so here you have Napoleon Hill with the book Think and Grow Rich. Very, very famous book, bestseller for a number of years, that talks about these principles. He doesn't talk about them directly necessarily, but he communicates. If you know what you're looking for, you can see very clearly that he's talking about these principles. Norman Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking. You have Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer. You have Oprah, Michael Beckwith. These are all leaders in New Thought. And so, for example, if you watch a lot of the content that Oprah is creating, that she's producing, she talks about these principles of spirituality, principles of awareness, principles of a mindness. These are all New Thought principles. You also had the early 20th century, you had a movement around personal growth and personal development, size seminars, landmark education, all applying these principles. So as you can see, New Thought is not new, and it's a conversation that has been happening for many years, since the beginning of mankind, and of course it continues to grow and to unfold even today. New Thought versus New Age. This is an important slide, and I just want to make a quick distinction between the two. New Thought holds the view that it's the individual's belief system that causes anything to emerge in one's reality. So it's your belief about whatever there is in your life that actually causes that experience for you. New Age is a little different. It's more or less the belief that there is some type of formula, some type of crystal, there's something out there that if you just gain access to, then you'll be able to have the power to do whatever it is, whether it's to heal yourself, whether it's to, drive away spirits or what have you. In New Thought, there is no idea that there's anything outside of you. We'll talk about this in a moment, but we're all one with a single principle of life. And because we're all one existing inside of this principle, it's our beliefs and it's our consciousness and our intention that allows us to choose the results that we create in our life. There's no force outside of there. And so I wanted to make this slide and I wanted to talk about this because when I was first uncovering all of this information, spiritual information, frankly, it was a bit confusing because there was so much out there and there was so much to believe in. And I was really looking for a structure. I wanted to understand what these principles were, why they're important. And here's the thing, if you're a New Age participant, if you will, if you enjoy that, the philosophies, the structure in terms of thinking and understanding how and why these things work can be absolutely supportive to you. So let's talk about some of these principles. So the very first principle is this idea of one. this is a simple concept. There's one force, one creative intelligence. It goes by lots of different names throughout time and history and tradition, but there's this one force that we all live inside of. There's no separation between ourselves and this force. There's no separation. There's no alternative to this one force, which is a good force. It's a life-giving force. It's a life-affirming force. If you look around you, all of nature is experiencing life. Ideas of good and evil are actually judgments that are created by humans. They exist inside the reality of human affairs, but when you look at reality with a capital R, all is well, all is good. Some would say that it's neutral, and we as humans, we determine whether it's good or evil, and that's really what this is all about. Next, as I mentioned, there's one life. All of us live inside of this one life. And so there's this unity, and the more we become aware of it, the more of it we get to experience. There's no separation. So in New Thought principles, you're never praying outside yourself. You're never hoping for something. You're never sending hopes or prayers, because you are one with all of life. It is within you. It's emerging in you. You get to participate in it to the degree that you're aware of it. Next, this idea of heaven. Heaven is a state of consciousness. It's not a place that you go. Hell is a state of consciousness. It's not a place that you go. And your beliefs and your experience or lack of experience around this idea, it's based on you. It's based on your belief system around those things. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times, the more conscious you are aware of your existence within this oneness, the more you're able to actually experience its expression in all things. So when you hold the idea within your mind that you're one with all life, you look at the world a little differently. You begin to see life in places where you might have not have seen it before. You begin to experience yourself differently. You begin to sense your connection with all things. And as I mentioned, the divinity is within you. It's not out there. You're never looking outside of yourself. And so the only thing that you're seeking to do is become more and more and more aware of what you are and the oneness that is always present all the time. And this sounds a little big, but it's very, very, very practical to everyday life. And we'll get to that in a few moments. Cause and effect are governed by your beliefs. So, for example, if you believe that you're going to fail your math test, chances are you're going to do things like not study or talk yourself into believing that you're not smart enough, and ultimately you're going to fail your math test. So whatever you believe about a certain thing, that becomes your law. That belief basically becomes a boundary that you live inside of. And so if your beliefs are very small and limiting, you're going to have a very small and limiting life. If you expand your beliefs, then you'll have an expanded life. And we get to choose our beliefs. That's one of the major principles of New Thought. We get to choose our beliefs, and the beliefs that we choose create our lives. The mind, highly intelligent software, but it's not you. It's very important to understand. Oftentimes we have thoughts that go through our minds, we feel certain things, and we think that we are actually these thoughts and ideas. We can observe these thoughts and ideas, but at the end of the day, we can observe these thoughts and ideas, but who we are and what we are is the individual that's actually looking back at the reflection that you see in the mirror. Not the one having the conversation about what you see, but it's the individual looking back and seeing the form that's in the mirror. So you are endless. You are infinite. And the more you recognize that, the more you realize that, the stronger you'll be able to apply these principles, and the more effective you'll be able to see them work in your life. You're always expressing the one, and the one is always expressing itself through you. So all of nature, the mountains, the trees, the animals are always expressing this aliveness. They're always exuding energy. We are the same way. We're always expressing life. We're always expressing energy. And if you block that energy, if you try to stop yourself from expressing life, that's a lot of times when you start to see challenges in your life. So if you have a desire to paint, you have a desire to create, if you have a desire to build, do those things. And what you'll experience is a greater expression of yourself, and you'll be applying this principle of New Thought. Next, we're always using these spiritual principles. We're using them all the time. We never not use them. We might not be aware that we're using them, but we're using them all the time. So for example, the idea of creation, everything that's around you was created by man, was created by a process. And New Thought talks about this process. We go very deep into detail and we explain this process. So I mentioned that you're always using this principle. So say, for example, take a window. Someone had an idea for a window. They drew it out. They built the window, and now you have a window. It's a process that we take for granted, but it's a very important process when you begin to look more deeply at it and how you can apply this process to your life. Intuition, many of times you may pick up the phone, maybe the person that you were thinking about was already on the phone, or maybe you feel something or you sense something. This is a part of intuition, and New Thought, we talk about some distinctions between intuition of a higher order and maybe intuition that's more general to the mass consciousness. We also talk about beliefs. This is very, very important because beliefs, what you believe, what you think about, what you believe, what you hold on to creates the reality. And so we're always talking about this principle and New Thought. We're always exploring what our beliefs are. If you want to know what your beliefs are for your life, just look at your life. Look at your bank account. Look at your relationships. Look at how you feel. Look at your health and wellness. You will see what your beliefs are. And then, if you don't enjoy what you see, you get to change it. So here's some New Thought practices. There are a number of practices, or what I like to think of as spiritual technologies or tools that we can use to apply principles of New Thought. And at the Institute of New Thought, we teach about these practices. We talk about how to use them so that you can apply them to your life at certain times. So affirmative thought, it's a different way of thinking. A lot of times it's very easy to habitually think in a very negative fashion. So we talk about a very specific method of thinking. We talk about affirmative prayer, which is actually a part of that. So you could really say affirmative prayer, affirmative thought. It's very similar. There's a very specific method to thinking in a way that allows you to feel positive about yourself, to experience the fullness of life, the fullness of oneness, to have greater energy, to see things as they actually are and maybe not as your emotions are telling you that they are. Very important. Visioning, visualization, these are important tools. We talk about meditation. We teach about these things. Mindfulness is something else we talk about. Another practice of New Thought is to study. Sometimes sitting quietly and studying these principles is a very helpful practice to supporting your life experience. Gratitude, writing. We do a fair amount of writing. If done in the right way, you can uncover really wonderful, beautiful things about yourself, about life, and possibly even identify some ways of thinking that are not supporting you. And you can apply these principles to shift that. Reading uplifting books, listening to uplifting music, creative expression. These are all New Thought practices when they're done with consciousness, with the intention to experience an expanded version of yourself and of all of life. So here's some ways that you can apply New Thought principles, and we teach about these as well in our courses. One way to apply New Thought is to creating a greater degree of self-actualization or meaning in your life. A lot of times people achieve a high degree of success, and those people are generally attracted to this particular philosophy. They've achieved a great degree of success. They've got the money, the houses, the cars, and all of those things, but they're looking for meaning. They're looking to experience themselves in a bigger way beyond the things, because they've concluded that the things are just the things and they're temporary, and they're looking for an expanded version of themselves. So, meaning if you have a spiritual or religious practice, these principles will absolutely enhance those practices. Health and well-being. There's a huge move towards alternative wellness, alternative healing, using the mind, these types of things. So you can apply these principles for that. You can apply these principles in school and work and business. I teach a number of classes to business leaders about how to apply these principles to operate with integrity, to have powerful conversations with other leaders. You can apply these principles to leadership, to personal finance, to relationships. And of course, the result of studying and applying these principles is you get the opportunity to be calm in your being. You get to know your being. You get to feel comfortable in your skin. You gain clarity of thought. Your focus and your concentration is much stronger. There's a greater degree of energy. You get the opportunity to make wise decisions for a change. A lot of times, because we're not present in the moment, we make poor decisions. But these principles really help you do that. Restful sleep, resilience, grit to get things done, and enhanced communication. When you know yourself and you understand yourself and you can sense yourself as connected to all of life, to all of humanity, you can actually communicate in a much more effective, much more life-affirming way. So what is the Institute of New Thought? It's a reminder. That's really what it is. It's a reminder that you are a perfect expression of life, that you're beautiful in every way, that you're wonderfully made, and you're infinitely good. And when I say good, I'm not talking about a social standard, a social judgment, this kind of thing. Really what I'm talking about is the essence of what you are is whole, it's perfect, it's complete. There's nothing broken about you. You are good and all is well. And to the degree that you're able to see that, that is going to determine the quality of life that you have. That's the reminder that we offer at the Institute of New Thought. And we do that by facilitating education, experiential practices, cultivating spiritual awakening, personal transformation, and life mastery. So said in a simple way, we do really cool things. You have a very, very good time. You learn about yourself. You learn about life. And you feel an expanded, fuller, more alive experience of life. That's what we do. You can visit us at instituteofnewthought.com to learn a little more. You can check out some of our audios there. You can visit our free digital library. We have several PDFs of books by New Thought thinkers. This may be a great way to get you started in reading some of the content that's out there. We have an email list that you can be a part of. We have classes. We'll have several classes. We're actually in the process of building up our faculty. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. Find us out there, watch our videos, comment, engage with us. We'll talk back to you. Local events, groups. We're in the process of building an infrastructure so that there are groups for New Thought all around the world. If you'd like to participate in that, send us a message. Maybe you want to lead it. This is a great opportunity to get some leadership skills, give you an opportunity to volunteer and participate in a way that maybe you had never thought. It could be a book group or a study group, or it could just be a group of friends that meet together and share similar ideas and share their values with each other. Being creative. So if you are an artist, if you're a musician, if you have some type of talent and you'd like to share your understanding and your experience of New Thought in a bigger, more expansive way, get with us. Contact us. We'll support you in that. And of course, if you'd like to volunteer, please do. Please reach out to us. There are a number of things that we need support on here at the Institute of New Thought. You may want to volunteer in your community. We are a for-profit business. We do pay taxes, and we chose that because we felt that was the most authentic path ahead for us. And not only that, but it gives us a lot more latitude and flexibility in terms of what we create. So this has been Michael Tucker, CEO, co-founder of Institute of New Thought. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you on the site, through social media, in person, around the world, wherever we can find you. Until next time, be well.